I'm very happy that lectures from the Trivandrum Law College as well as the students are having keen interest in law subjects like this. I, being a person hailing from Kasaragod district and studied in Karnataka almost after my UP level, I studied in Karnataka only. When I came to Ernakulam to practice, I had a very embarrassing situation in front of Law College, Ernakulam. Because I studied in a very disciplined college in Mangalore. There was no student union, there was no strike. You may be surprised that I never lost a single class in 3 years law course, even though I traveled for 35 kilometers every day. Even common cold and fever used to affect me only on holidays. When I came to Ernakulam for practice, I was surprised how the students can study law in an atmosphere where there were a lot of disturbance. But when the Trivandrum Law College is organizing such programs, really it is good, because as one among the public and being a law student or a law teacher or a government officer as probation officer or as a judge, what I feel is that we are all creatures of this society. Without society, nobody can progress. I will just begin with a short incident happened in my court when I was working in Ernakulam. In a 138 Negotiable Instruments Act case, an accused failed to appear before the court repeatedly, and I constrained to issue arrest warrant to arrest him and produce him before the court. But he was not ready to come to the court. Warrant was not executed. Ultimately, one day he surrendered with a medical certificate. Prima facie, the medical certificate found to be bogus one. It was written in a brown paper, usually used for, in olden days in shops, we used to have such brown packets. I suspected something and I called the doctor who issued the certificate to give evidence in order to prove the genuineness of the certificate. Next day, that means the day when the case was posted for appearance of the doctor, when I reached the court by 9:15 or 9:30, this doctor, a lady doctor, was waiting in the veranda of the court. A person also there appears to be her husband. Both of them were there. They wished me, and I went into my chambers. When the case was called, I noticed both of them inside the court. They were watching. And I called her and I examined her on behalf of the court for the purpose of ascertaining the genuineness of the certificate. I asked her what was the problem. Then she said that this person came to me with viral fever, and what you did. He revealed that she advised 15 days rest. Then again I asked whether you prescribed any medicine. Yes, sir, I prescribed Dolo. Dolo 600 I prescribed. Then I asked whether he met you later after 15 days. No, sir. What was the temperature? It was 102 degree. It was noted in the certificate. Then I asked her, a person approaching you with 102 degrees that temperature, and you are diagnosing it as a viral fever, prescribing only these medicines, and thereafter he never approached you, and after 6 or 7 months, you are issuing the certificate stating that you advised 15 days rest. Under which provision of law you advised this rest? She was unable to answer. Then I asked her whether you ascertained that his fever was subsided, and you advised him any blood test, etc. She said, I never did. Then I asked her, where from you? She said she is from somewhere near Ernakulam. Under what provision of law you are issuing such medical certificate? She could not answer. Then she said, sir, so many people are approaching us for the purpose of production before the court. Certificates are necessary. Therefore, we are constrained to issue such certificates. Then immediately I asked her, you see, you became a doctor not by yourself. You became doctor because your parents decided to send you to the medical course. Of course, you might have got the good marks in your PDC or +2 level. But you just imagine in this society, right from your birth till today, how many persons contributed for your this doctorship? From your LKG, UKG, first standard, until you completed your course in MBBS. Lot of people. Starting from the nurse attended her mother in the hospital till she came to my court on that day. It is not possible by your own effort to become a doctor. You became a doctor because innumerable number of people have contributed for your in your life. Then only you became a doctor. Therefore, this is the society which made you a doctor, and not yourself you became a doctor. Understand? Thereafter, what you are doing, you are issuing certificates to the people. You are issuing certificate to the people only for the purpose of producing me for the court in order to avoid some arrest or remand to the judicial custody. In effect, you are injecting poison to the society. Understand? You are injecting poison to the system. If it is not correct, and the reason is not correct, why should you issue such a certificate? You are doing a very big sin as far as society is concerned. You should not do it. The result was she started to cry or weep in the witness box, and ultimately my staff provided some water to her. She was made to sit in the bench and she left the court. What I am bringing home is that the society is the main object of our discussion today. It is said, no criminal is born. No criminal is born in this earth. A criminal, actually a person of circumstance. Then how the society looks at a criminal is very important. We have so many values, societal values, moral values, religious values, everything is there in our multifarious country like India. But The community is responsible. You see, without justice, a society may not progress. Then who is responsible for this justice? It is the community. If there is a justice, then there is a progress. There will be a public order. Therefore, the principle led to creation of laws and birth of crime and punishment is based on this principle. Why these criminal laws are created? If there are no criminal laws, what is the consequence? You all know, in order to prevent harm to the society. In order to prevent harm to the society means that includes harm to the individual, harm to the property, and everything. Because each individual is part and parcel of a society. The injury may be to the health, to the safety, to the morals, to the welfare, everything. Then what is the consequence of punishing the criminal or the person who commits any crime? What is the consequence? The consequence is that we believed that by punishing the person who commits the crime, the harm to the society is reduced. We cannot visualize a situation where a person is convicted for an offense and he is let free without any sentence. Because sentence is incidental and it is a part and parcel of conviction. This is the ancient thought. And in Halsbury's Laws of England, it is stated, the aims of punishment are now considered to be retribution, justice, deterrence, reformation, and protection. We are much concerned about this protection principle. We want to see that we should not be subjected to any crime. We should be protected. What is the modern sentencing policy? In India as well as all over the world, the modern sentencing policy reflects a combination of several of these aims. The retributive element is very important because public always behind the ultimate punishment given to the criminal or the accused. They are satisfied if the accused is sufficiently punished. I remember during 1970s or 80s, these newspapers, they devote major part of their space for developmental news or political news. But now, every newspaper turned out to be a crime newspaper. I think you will agree with me. If a crime has taken place, it will be given prominence in the newspaper. Why our society is celebrating the crime like this? Have you ever thought about it? This is the reason why even the judiciary, the advocate profession, everybody is behind how the criminal is sentenced. You may remember last month there was a judgment from a court from Kollam, where a person was sentenced to undergo imprisonment for life for killing his wife by using a venomous snake. On that day, all our news channels, irrespective of their political color, whatever it may be, they were deliberating upon why death sentence is not given. Why death sentence was not given? That was the terms of debate on that day. This is the general conscience of our society today. Nobody is thought about the reformation. Everybody is thinking about the deterrence. The concept of justice as an aim of punishment means both that the punishment should fit the offense and also that like offenses should receive similar punishments. An increasingly important aspect of punishment is deterring not only the actual offender from further offenses, but also potential offenders from breaking the law. This was the original concept mentioned in the Hasbury's Laws of England. But it is also stated the importance of reformation of the offender is shown by the growing emphasis laid upon it by much modern legislation. But the judicial opinion towards this aim is varied, and rehabilitation will not usually be accorded precedence over deterrence. This is the reason why even today we are all behind the criminal to see that the maximum punishment is given to the criminal and not for any reformative theory or rehabilitation of the criminal in the society. This is not particular to the judiciary or the advocates or the judges. This is now prevalent in the society itself. Therefore, if a judge releases an offender on probation, the judge is found fault with. The next day there will be a news item. You know, every offense not punishable with the death or imprisonment for life can be brought under this act, Probation of Offenders Act. According to Immanuel Kant, a Russian philosopher, he says any action is right if it can coexist with everyone's freedom in accordance with the universal law, or if on its maxim the freedom of choice of each can coexist with everyone's freedom in accordance with the universal law. Therefore, whatever action by an individual person is right if it can coexist with the universal law. Then what is punishment? We know in law subject it is stated punishment is the sanction imposed by the state for violation of penal law, and it is assigned by the judgment of a court. What is the intention? Intention is that by punishing, the social justice will be restored. We are more about preventing the commission of similar offenses by the offender, as well as preventing others from indulging in similar crimes. Therefore, in almost all cases, the punishment is given not only to the offender, but also the proposed offenders who may come before the court on a future day. and deter them from indulging in crime. There is a school of thought stating that least restrictive punishment must be imposed unless the goals of punishment cannot be achieved without inflicting a more severe punishment. But it is said, severe punishment for comparatively minor offenses may be counterproductive. Because punishment with commensurate with the degree of the crime. That is the reason why in Indian Penal Code, different punishments have been stated from a fine of ₹50 to death sentence. What I understood from the textbooks, even though there are so many categories of punishments and theories of punishments, two major theories are, one is that incapacitation theory and the another one is that reformative theory. Now almost all all segments of our justice system are more and more prone to inflict this incapacitation theory than reformative theory. That is the reason why a symposium like this has its own importance today. Incapacitation is an extreme goal of punishment and must be used sparingly. Incapacitation makes the offender beyond hope. He or she is unable to behave and live amongst the society. On the other hand, rehabilitation must be the most important and favored legal goal of punishment. What it focuses? It focuses on the hope that the offender can be reformed or changed for the better while being punished. He may be reintegrated with the rest of the society with the hope that he or she does not re-offend. Human behavior is a product of antecedent causes. I remember in my native, there was a murder in 1970. I was just a 7 or 8 years old boy. And when we were going to the school, one person from my native was accused in that murder case. He was in prison for some days, nearly for 1 year, I think. Thereafter, he was released and case was tried in Talasheri Sessions Court. My father was one of the witnesses in that case, but he was not examined since there was another witness. This particular person, he used to walk through our lane. There is a small lane. We call it a tondu. On both sides, there will be some compound wall and small. During the rainy season, water will flow, and other season, we will walk. Whenever we intercept this person in the tondu, we won't cross him. Because in our mind, our parents have infused that this person is a murderer. You should avoid him. All students coming from the school used to evade him, either by standing on the southern side of the tondu or on the northern side of the tondu when he is crossing the tondu. Therefore, from my childhood itself, some aversion is created in my mind so that a person who was accused of an offense, of course, he was acquitted, no proof. Even such person is seen by the society in this manner. You just imagine a person who is convicted and released on probation. What is his fate today? Therefore, what I feel is that The general conscience of our society has to be changed. We cannot have an idea, or we cannot have an impression that every criminal cannot be reformed. There may be exceptions. Therefore, the role of probation officers is very important in this respect, because they are the persons who are in constant touch with these persons. I can't call them as criminals. We can call them as offenders. The law provides for it, offenders. They may be first offenders. They may be juvenile offenders. We don't know. And it is the probation officers who have constant touch with them, and they can only give necessary input to the court so that the court can exercise its jurisdiction under the PO Act. What I feel is that every human being is a treasure. That is the reason why in central level as well as in state level, we have human resource department itself. And our Honorable Prime Minister used to give to the world that India has 70 lakhs youths. What it means? That means every human being a treasure. They have ability to transfer gifts from nature into valuable resources to the country, and this resource can be utilized for useful purposes. It does not make any difference between a person who indulged in some crimes and persons without doing any crimes. Therefore, it is necessary for every court to choose appropriate punishment, even if the offender is found to be guilty. The punishment scheme must consider the fact that main goal should be to assist offenders in becoming aware of their own greatness, so that they no longer feel it necessary to hurt others. In a civilized society governed by rule of law, no punishment can be inflicted on an individual unless it serves some social purpose. I began my speech today with the importance of a society. Everything is for the benefit of society. We are all working for the benefit of the society. Therefore, whatever we do, it also should be for the benefit of the society. We have to think, inflicting punishment to an individual, whether it is beneficial to the society or whether it serves some social purpose. We know the punishment theory is retributive theory, very primitive one, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Even in some countries, this being followed. Then deterrent theory, it deters the rest of the world from indulging in similar crimes by giving punishment to the offender. Then preventive theory and compensatory theory, because in Gulf there is a concept of blood money. If anybody kills one, and if compensation is paid to the family, to the tune of the amount agreed upon between the parties or directed by the government, the man will be let free. then reformative theory, on which we are debating today, and finally, utilitarian theory. As far as courts are concerned, when we are imposing punishment for a crime, there is a procedure of hearing the accused. Accused will be heard on the question of sentence also. Accused has a duty to divulge to the court what is his circumstance, what is his family background, and how he indulged in the crime. And if he is let free, what is the benefit to the society and how he will be beneficial to the society, etc. I worked for 7 years as magistrate. Sorry to say, in none of the cases, when the accused is heard on the question of sentence, the accused has revealed anything about his personal matters to the court. Why? There is no legal literacy. It is whose duty to inform the accused that you have benefit of this act? You may be released under section 4, 3, 4, 6, whatever it may be. Therefore, you have to state to the court such and such things. Sometimes it may click the mind of the judge who is imposing punishment. On the other hand, our legal fraternity will advise the accused, ഞാൻ കുറ്റം ചെയ്തില്ല എന്ന് മാത്രം പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി, വേറെ ഒന്നും മിണ്ടണ്ട. ഇതാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്. Even in murder case, the accused will say, കുറ്റം ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. In last, I think in March or April, in Calicut, I conducted a murder case in which one accused was found guilty and he was heard on the question of sentence. നിങ്ങളെ കുറ്റം ചെയ്തതായി കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്, ശിക്ഷയെ പറ്റി എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാനുണ്ടോ? കുറ്റം ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല സാർ, ഈസ് ആൻസർ. അതല്ല, കുറ്റം ചെയ്തെന്ന് കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞു, ഇനിയിപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ശിക്ഷയെ പറ്റി പറയാനുണ്ടോ? എന്നെ വെറുതെ വിടണോ സാർ? അടുത്ത ആൻസർ. What I feel is that I am not offending any advocates who may be present in this audience. Advocates have a duty to inform the accused the importance of PO Act, the factors which have to be considered by a judge in imposing sentence as per the PO Act, to which what I feel is that legal education is necessary. An offender may not know there is such an act, and if he says to the court that I may be released on probation, the court will release him. But advocate should know. The court will usually take into account the facts and circumstances of the case, the nature of the offense, the way it was planned and was executed, the motive for commission of the offense, the conduct of the accused, the weapons used, the age of the accused, his antecedents, the nature of culpability, potentiality of convict to become a criminal in future, capability of his or her reformation, propensity to become a social threat or nuisance, the relationship between the parties, Because whenever there is a crime, there is a victim also. Possibility of bringing the convict to the value-based social mainstream. These are all the factors to be weighed with the judge while imposing sentence. Judge, you see, Mr. Vidyadharan is from Kasaragod, my native, and he is working in Trivandrum. Because we are not placed in the place where we born or we practiced. Therefore, we will be posted only in distant places. We may not know what is happening in that particular society, what's the nature of the persons, etc. Only the matter brought before the court as evidence are before us. It is the duty of every advocate to bring the circumstances before the court. And ultimately, it is the probation officers who have to gather information and place it before the judge. Then only the judge may know how to implement these provisions to the benefit of the society by giving benefit of probation to the offender. But there cannot be any straitjacket formula or a soluble theory in mathematical exactitude. It mostly depends upon the personal perception of the judge, his self-acquired moral values or a hypothetical apprehension. But these aspects should not come in the way of the matter of imposing sentence. My moral values may be different from another's. It may not be the moral value of the society. We know transgenders were looked with the much that inferiority status in the society, with the much disgrace. But now some rights have been given to them. Even in some application forms, columns are inserted for mentioning transgenders. And I think Vidyadharan may know, our legal service authority also taken so many steps in order to give the status to the transgenders in the society. Therefore, our personal moral perceptions are not at all a moral perception of the society. Such a perception should not come in the way of implementing the provisions of this act, but it happens. That is the sorry state of affairs. In the state of Punjab versus Prem Sagar, a 2008 Supreme Court case, 2008 7 SCC 550, it was held. In our judicial system, we have not been able to develop legal principles as regards sentencing. The superior courts accept making observations with regard to the purport and object for which punishment is imposed upon an offender, have not issued any guidelines. Other developed countries have done so. At some quarters, serious concerns have been expressed in this behalf. Some committees, as for example, Madhav Menon Committee, Malimat Committee, have advocated introduction of sentencing guidelines. Unfortunately, so far we have no sentencing guidelines at all. This is another area of concern. Coming to the point of moral perception, I will illustrate one instance. When I took charge in Kannur as Judicial First Class Magistrate number 1, there was an accused who was accused of committing theft of a gold chain from the neck of a lady. Evidence was over when I took charge. The case was posted for questioning under section 313. I prepared the questions and conducted examination. He denied that he has committed any offense. Case was watched for defense evidence. His advocate said, sir, there is no defense evidence. And I asked the advocate for hearing the matter. Advocate said, I want 2 days time to argue the matter. I granted time. And after 2 days, advocate said, the client is not seen. He has not contacted me. He has not contacted me. Therefore, I am unable to argue. Your Honor may issue warrant to him so that let him come. This was the submission of the counsel. I issued warrant and posted the case after 10 days because the accused not appearing and advocate is not having any instruction. That is the only way in which we can procure the presence of the accused in a criminal case. One fine morning, my police person from Kannur Central Police Station who used to attend my court duty came to me and said, sir, കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം സാറ് 3:13 കഴിഞ്ഞില്ലേ കൃഷ്ണൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പ്രതി അയാൾ ട്രെയിനിന്റെ അടിയിൽ തലവെച്ച് മരിച്ചു സാറ്. Oh. Advocate also told me my client committed suicide yesterday and case is abated. And after 4 or 5 months, I was transferred to Ernakulam and there was a small meeting or farewell meeting. In that, the advocate also present. Incidentally, I asked the advocate, why Krishnan committed suicide? Then he said, sir, you have not seen the complainant in that case. She is a lady working in a particular establishment. The allegation is that when she was traveling in a bus, after she just lighted the bus near to her establishment, this person tried to snatch her chain. This was the case. But actually, he is not a thief. What has happened is that he just squeezed the breast of this lady. But this lady, fearing the social outrage and insult, she complained that he tried to snatch the chain. Immediately, the people took him to the police station. Police asked this lady to give her chain, and they conducted a recovery under Section 27 of the Evidence Act and charged the case. You see, at that time, Section 354 was not a non-bailable offense, it was a bailable offense. A 354 offense was made as a theft offense, 379 offense. And then I asked the advocate, why you have not taken such a defense? Then the advocate stated, sir, I know your moral setup. You may let him free even if he is found guilty of 379, but you may not let him free if he is accused of 354. That is the reason why I have not taken that plea. You see, this person is not at all a thief. He is not a criminal. He is unmarried at that time. And this lady, I have not seen her, stated to be a very beautiful lady and having a very modern dress, every day going to some concern. He might have, in a fraction of a second, he might have lost his control of the brain and have done it. Maybe. You see, a valuable life has been lost. Because every day he was thinking, I will be sentenced to imprisonment and I may have to go to jail, etc., etc. Number of instances like this. Therefore, our moral conviction or moral conviction of the society, everything is nothing to do with the reformative theory. That is the reason why judges, advocates, and society should not go behind this media hype about the crime and criminals. Another major aspect is that there is no uniformity in awarding sentences, and the discretion exercised by the judges are not uniform. I know it cannot be uniform also because it is the discretion given in the, you might have seen the provisions in the IPC and other penal enactment. What it says, may be sentenced up to 5 years, up to 6 years. What it means? You may sentence him for till the rising of the court, or you may sentence him for 5 years. That depends upon the judge. That is the reason why in that decision the Supreme Court held there should be some minimum policy for sentencing. What happened is that I remember in Calicut, when I was working there is a provision in Abkari Act. Under section 15, anybody consumes alcohol in a public place, he will be sentenced to pay fine up to 5,000 rupees or imprisonment up to 6 months, I remember. Some judges, they are compulsorily imprisoning these persons for 1 month or 2 months. Some judges just releasing them, directing them to pay fine. Because if a judge is teetotaler, he sees it is a very serious offense. If a judge is accustomed to have some alcohol, definitely he will not see it as a serious offense. This is the mindset of the judges. That is the reason why a sentencing policy is very much necessary, but it is not here in India. On going to the decisions of the Supreme Court, I find in 1974 Supreme Court, 799, Justice V.R. Krishnaiyer, the case Ediga Anamma versus State of Andhra Pradesh. In that case, a death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. And in a later decision, Rajendra Prasad versus State of UP, AR 1979 Supreme Court 916, where 3 death sentences were set aside and life imprisonment were imposed. The Honorable Judge held that the retributive theory had its day and is no longer valid. Deterrence and reformation are the primary social goals which make deprivation of life and liberty reasonable as penal panacea. Later, in Muhammad Ghiyasuddin case, AR 1977 Supreme Court 1926, a person who swindled money promising to provide employment, and he was accused of offenses like 420 IPC, etc. It was held, crime is a pathological aberration that a criminal can ordinarily be redeemed, and that the state has to rehabilitate rather than avenge. Therefore, even from 1970s, from the era of legend Sri V.R. Krishnaiyer, the theory propagated by the Supreme Court repeatedly is that eye for eye is not the theory of punishment. Even deterrence is also not the theory. We should strive for reformative theory. Because the jails are now overburdened. I remember in Calicut, when I was there, always these inmates are transported to some other places like Chimeni, etc., open jail, etc., etc., stating that there is no sufficient space. Can this be continued? If so, how long? And whether there is any tendency to show that the crimes are come down by this deterrent punishments? I don't think so. Therefore, it is a pathological aberration in the Ghiyasuddin case. Therefore, it is the need of the society to give proper treatment. I remember that Honorable Supreme Court in Maru Ram's case held Section 433A CRPC is constitutionally valid. The intention was very clear and loud. The rehabilitation and reformation is the goal. Even a life convict can be released after 14 years because there is a hope of reformation. Similarly, I remember that in Shiv Mohan Singh, the Supreme Court, 77 Supreme Court 949, upheld the death sentence also, holding that it is not the time to abolish death sentence. In spite of all this, probation has its own relevancy. That is the clear idea given in various judgments of the Supreme Court as well as High Courts. Then what is probation? We know a government employee entered into service for 2 years, he will be on probation. The literal meaning of the word probation is to prove yourself. To prove oneself is the literal meaning. Therefore, if a person is released on probation for a particular period, not more than 3 years as per that act, he will prove to the society that I am a beneficial element in this society and I need not be detained. It is a modern method, a rational method to tackle the problem of criminality. The main reason is that most crimes are committed by situational or near criminals, and they may be reformed and saved from becoming lawbreakers or real criminals. It is an alternative for the imprisonment because conviction is there. What is evaded or avoided is the sentence alone. Of course, there is a provision which says this conviction will not bar him from certain aspects, but a person is convicted for his crime and he is released on probation means, you see, you have committed this crime. This court finds that you have committed it, you are guilty, but an opportunity will be given to you. You may prove yourself a beneficial person to the society by your future conduct and act. That is the meaning of probation. There are various interpretations given, but almost all interpretations are the similar lines. I'm not going through those interpretations in America, in England, etc. But I found it very interesting that one John Augustus, he was a shoemaker. In 1841, at that time there was no advocates are appearing before the court as now. This Augustus took the case of a person who intoxicated in public and causing a nuisance to others. He approached the judge to set this person free. He got an order, favorable order. On probation, the person was released. Thereafter, he has pleaded for releasing the persons accused of offences to the tune of 2,000 cases. And the history shows, out of 2,000 people he helped, only 4 persons proved unworthy. And they forfeited their bail and were imprisoned. This is the story of 18th century. It is a proven fact. Therefore, probation is actually helpful to the society, and it is not proved otherwise. Provided there is a truthful report before the court and court has exercised its jurisdiction correctly as per the provisions of law. As you know, the probation is conditional suspension of sentence. By releasing a person on probation, one cannot say that no proper punishment is given to the culprit. Because if the culprit violates any bond conditions, indulges in any crimes, or doing anything against the conditions in the bond, definitely he will be brought back and made to undergo sentence. On the other hand, if he is living a good life without causing harm to anybody, reforming himself, definitely he is a benefit to the society. That is the reason why, in either way, probation is not anathema and it can be used. For the purpose of reformation. We know in India, in criminal procedure code, old criminal procedure code, there was a provision, and later under section 360 another provision is made, but that provision is not applicable to us because Probation of Offenders Act is applicable to Kerala and rules under Probation of Offenders Act also enacted. Therefore, we are bound by Probation of Offenders Act and not by 360 CRPC. Of course, I could see that some decisions are even now written on section 360, maybe by mistake. But as far as Kerala is concerned, PO Act is operational and it is applicable. One question may be asked, whether sentence in all crimes is a must. We know every criminal trial concludes with a judgment of acquittal or conviction. When the accused is found guilty and convicted, the next item is proceeding to pass a sentence. The theory is that one should be sufficiently punished. Malayalamil parayallo, kittendathu kittanam. What one deserves should be given properly. Judge is also happy, prosecutor is happy, society is happy, media is happy, everybody is happy if punishment is given. But the theory of probation says, in some cases where the court considers it desirable, instead of sentencing the accused to any punishment, release him on probation of good conduct. Therefore, the probation sentencing is aimed at the individual and not his crime. We are concerned only with the individual, how to reform him, how to make him a useful individual for the society. We are just forgetting his crime because the crime already entered into conviction. A conviction is entered. Thereafter, it is the second stage. Therefore, it is aimed at the individual and not at the crime. Through the individual, we are seeing or we are looking to the benefit of the society. Therefore, the object is to reform and reintegrate offenders without submitting them to stigma of prison life. What is the difficulty of this prison life? We come across so many trolls in social media stating that എന്താണ് കോഴിക്കറിയും മട്ടനും ഒക്കെ കിട്ടും ജയിലിൽ ഇപ്പൊ സുഖമാണ്. I remember one of my friend's wife who locked inside herself inside the bathroom one day, and when my friend she could not call him because they were my friend's wife alone were residing in that house. Somehow she went to the bathroom and this bolt of that bathroom rusted or something. It could not come down, therefore she could not come out. No houses nearby. She cried aloud. Nobody came there. It was by 3:30 or 4 somewhere. Only after court hours he went to his residence by 5:30. There was no wife was not seen, even though he pressed the bell. But he pressed the bell, then she heard the noise and she made some hue and cry from the bathroom. Then only he realized his wife was there. With the help of the neighbors, he could open that window of the bathroom. Using a stick, he could open the door. The result is that wife fell down on the ground unconsciously, and she was rushed to the hospital, and after 2 or 3 hours she gained conscious, and then my friend said, I have sentenced so many persons to imprisonment. I never felt if a person is kept inside a room for 2 hours, this is the situation, what sin I have done in so many cases. This is the impact of imprisonment. Therefore, the chicken curry, mutton curry, nothing to do with if the personal liberty is curtailed. The procedure of probation. The procedure of probation is that one minute. Srilakshmi 1 minute. എൻ്റെ ബാറ്ററി ലോ ആയിട്ടുണ്ട്, ഞാനൊന്ന് പ്ലഗ് ചെയ്യട്ടെ. ഓക്കെ, okay, now it is okay. I think I need not go through the entire provisions of the Probation of Offenders Act. We know section 3 and 4. 3, 4 and 6 are very important provisions. Section 3 says power of court to release certain offenders after admonition. Even if a person is released under section 3, he has to be dealt with under section 4. But section 3 is particular about the persons who are found guilty for punishable under section 379 theft, 380, 381, 404 and 420 IPC or any other offense with imprisonment not more than 2 years or with fine or with both. And condition is that no previous conviction is proved against him, and court should have an opinion that having regard to the circumstance of the case, including the nature of the offense, character of the offender, it is expedient so to do. Therefore, from the records of the case, it can be seen whether he is convicted of these offenses. No much problem is there. No previous conviction is proved against him. Normally, prosecution will not bring. Only in exceptional cases, such evidence will be brought. But the third aspect, court should be have an opinion that having regard to the circumstance of the case, including the nature of the offense and the character of the offender, it is expedient. This can only be done by a report of the probation officer. Again, he will be released under section 4. The object is to keep the first offenders, mostly young offenders, away from the jail, considering the contaminated atmosphere in the prison. You know, prison may having seasoned criminals. They will flout the law now and then. We heard last month from the jail, people are operating using mobile phones, etc. And crimes are initiated even from jails. Therefore, the approach of the court should always be in such a way that deserving first offender should not be sent to prison. This is the idea. It is not only danger to the society, public, it is the danger to the offender also. If a first offender or a person who has committed a minor offense, though he was found guilty, sending him to prison to remain with these hardcore prisoners, definitely he will land in a situation where he will come out of the prison as a hard-earned criminal. This is the intention of this provision. In Ishar Das versus State of Punjab, a very apt quoted judgment, 1972 Supreme Court 1295, where section 18 of the Probation of Offenders Act was considered. But the principle laid down is that minimum punishment prescribed in an offense is not a bar to applying the provisions. Therefore, even if minimum sentence, because in so many laws, minimum sentence is prescribed, because the courts are of the opinion that it is not possible to release the accused on probation. But exception is only this: if the special enactment says that provisions of Probation of Offenders Act is not applicable, only in such cases the court is not in a position to apply the provisions of Probation of Offenders Act. Otherwise, even if minimum punishment is prescribed for any offense, this act can be made use of. This Ishar Das case was relied on in Pyarali versus Mahadevo Ramachandra Dange and others, 74 Supreme Court 228. It's a judgment of 5 judges, including Justice V.R. Krishna here again, where a principle was laid down. The rehabilitatory purpose of the Probation of Offenders Act is pervasive enough to technically to take within its wings an offense even under the Act, because Prevention of Food Adulteration Act was considered at that time. The ruling in Ishar Das is authority for this position. Certainly, its beneficial provisions should receive wide interpretation and should not be read in restrictive sense. But later amendment was made in the Food Adulteration Act. And the recent decision on the subject is Lakhvir Singh versus State of Punjab, 2021 2 Supreme Court cases 763. But certain enactments which contain provision, a non-obstante clause, example section 19 of the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act, where it is stated provisions of section 360 of the Indian Criminal Procedure Code and provisions of Probation of Offenders Act 1958 shall not apply to person above the age of 18 years who is found guilty of having committed an offence under the Act. Therefore, SC/ST Act with a social interest, in order to secure social justice to the depressed class of the society, such a provision is made in that Act. Similarly, section 33 of the NDPS Act, which says nothing contained in section 360 CRPC PO Act 1958 shall apply to a person convicted on offence under this Act unless such person is under 18 years of age, or that the offence for which such person is convicted is punishable under section 26 and 27. Such provisions are there in the Prevention of Corruption Act 1947, Defence of India Act, and the earlier PFA Act. Now PFA Act is abolished and Food Safety Act has been implemented. Another aspect is that Probation of Offenders Act is applicable even if the accused pleads guilty or he is convicted of trial after trial. No difference. Even if the accused is punished with the fine alone, then also this act can be applicable. It is not necessary imprisonment should be there. The person convicted of an offence but released under probation, his right to appeal is not curtailed. Still he can challenge, stating that I should not have been convicted. Therefore, he is not deprived of his right to filing the appeal. Under section 4, when any person is found guilty of having committed an offence not punishable with death or imprisonment of life, the court by which the person is found guilty was of opinion that, having regard to the circumstance of the case, including the nature of the offence and the character of the offender, it is expedient to release him on probation of good conduct. Then, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, court may, instead of sentence him at once at any punishment, direct that he be released on his entering into a bond with or without sureties to appear and receive sentence when called upon during such period not exceeding 3 years, as the court may direct, and in the meantime to keep peace and to be of good behavior. Therefore, under section, almost all offences where the punishment is not punishable with death or imprisonment for life are covered. There is a non-obstant clause in section 4 stating that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law being in force, the conditions are accused is found guilty of an offence so committed must not be punishable with death or imprisonment for life. The court by which the person is found guilty is of opinion that it is expedient to release him on probation of good conduct. Again, the importance of a report of the probation officer. There is no distinction about age of the accused, no distinction whether he is a first offender or not. The court has to consider the nature of the offence, character of the offender, and enter a finding that it is expedient in the interest of justice to release him on probation. Then he will be released on a bond with or without sureties. The condition is that he will be directed to receive sentence within a period not exceeding 3 years on the proof of the bond conditions are violated. The court will ask him to keep peace and of good behavior during that period. Therefore, even under section 3, a person is eligible to be released on probation. He has to execute bond as per section 4, and all these conditions will apply. There is no provision for demanding cash security. And I will read section 6 also, it is also important. Section 6 says, when any person under 21 years of age is found guilty of having committed an offense punishable with imprisonment, but not with imprisonment for life, the court by which the person is found guilty shall not sentence him to imprisonment unless it is satisfied that, having regard to the circumstance of the case, including the nature of the offense and the character of the offender, it would not be desirable to deal with him under section 3 or section 4. And if the court passes any sentence of imprisonment on the offender, it shall record its reasons. Here it is stated, for this purpose, court shall call for a report from the probation officer. Therefore, under section 3, particular offences are mentioned, and offences punishable with imprisonment 2 years or less than 2 years. And under section 4, all offences not punishable for imprisonment or life or death. And under section 6, it is a case of offender who are less than 21 years of age and not punishable with the death or imprisonment for life. But under section 6, it is mandatory on the part of the court to get a report from the probation officer if the offender is not more than 21 years as on the date of conviction. It is not as on the date of commission of the crime, as on the date of the conviction. This age has to be reckoned, and it is a mandatory direction to the court. If the person convicted is less than 21 years as on the date of conviction, the report of the probation officer is mandatory, and court has to state its reason why this act is not, he is not released on probation. Therefore, the duty of the court as well as duty of the probation officer to file a report is very important in this section. Now I come to the practical aspect of the problem. During introduction, the probation officer at Trivandrum, he just stated that even though this act enacted in 1958, so far its potential is not properly utilized by the courts. I fully accept his words. There are various reasons for it. What I feel is that, number one, the pendency, large number of cases in which magistrates court. I remember in Trivandrum as well as in Kollam, such districts, each magistrate courts are burdened with thousands of cases. It is very difficult even to have a normal roll call in cases, in courts. The staff of the court are overburdened. This is one of the reasons. The second thing is that it is in common parlance. Judges as well as the society is interested in noting the punishment given by the judge. Therefore, judges are not implementing this provision properly. What they feel is that if the accused is released on probation, it is not good. or it may brand the judge as a very liberal judge. If the judge convicts the accused more and more, the people will have a fear and he will have some respect. That is the feeling. And the third aspect is the delay. The report of the probation officer cannot be given in a matter of 2 or 3 days, because an elaborate procedure is prescribed under the rules. I don't know, any manual is there? Mr. Probation Officer, please let me know. Any manual is there for your work? Probation officer?
No such manual is there.
No,
actually, we are doing preliminary inquiry under probation officer. For that purpose, we have to visit the place. We have to meet the neighbors. We have to meet the family members. We have to meet the important, eminent persons in that area. Sometimes we may not meet the accused when we visit them. Then we have to call them in our office. We have to conduct an inquiry interview with them. We have to understand the personality of the accused. It is a long process.
Yes. Therefore, it is a very long process. And probation officers, if this provision is fully implemented, definitely they are overburdened, no doubt about it. I don't know whether they were sufficiently remunerated for visiting various places. When they are visiting the house of the accused, he may not be there. He might have gone to some other place. They have to wait, go again and again. Therefore, the report is delayed. And courts are not at all waiting for such reports. Otherwise, the disposal of the case will be delayed. This is one of the reasons. What I personally feel is that, and I used to do also, on the first hearing itself, at least during the stage of charge hearing or recording the plea of the accused, the report of the probation officer can be called. And usually the probation officer's report is confidential as per section 7, and it will be kept in a closed cover and it will be in the case file. While taking classes to our officers, I used to ask, I used to impress upon them to get such reports in advance so that at the appropriate time they can utilize it. But what is happening now is they are not getting reports in advance, and probation officers are unable to give such ready-made reports. Even if such urgent reports are given, they may not be correct, because it is a very hard task as far as a probation officer is concerned to know the antecedents of the accused. He may be a person, this officer may be a person from some other place, he is posted in some other place. He may not know the people there. We don't know whether these people are telling him truth. He has to cross-check it by making inquiry with so many persons, and it is a long drawn process. That is the reason why this provision is not properly implemented, and benefit of this act is not given to the offenders and to the society at large. But as already I have stated, it is the duty of every person who is handling this judicial system to see that a first offender or a person who committed a crime in a circumstance which tends to show that he is not a criminal and he is not a danger to the society, such person should be released on probation, and the benefit of his potential should be given to the society at large. There are some challenges. I am not going to other provisions because law is very plain and the sections are also very plain. I just concluding my session with some challenges as far as this act is concerned. One is supervision by a probation officer is not made mandatory as per section 4(3). Releasing an offender on probation without an order for supervision is against the intention of the legislation. I think this can be overcome by making the order for supervision mandatory, and even the judge can direct that there should be some supervision and a periodical report to the court. This leads to passing orders to release the offender without making a supervision order. But it appears sufficient indication is available in 3 different provisions, which shows that this supervision is necessary. Section 4(3), which uses the word, the court may, if it is of opinion that in the interest of the offender and of the public, it is expedient to do so. Releasing an offender under probation is always in the interest of the offender as well as in the interest of the public. Therefore, court can direct the person released on probation should be under the supervision of the probation officer, number 1. Second, section 4(4) makes it further clear that when the supervision order is made, certain requirements are to be met. 1, the offender has to enter into a bond with or without sureties. 2, he has to observe the conditions in the order with respect to his residence, abstention from intoxicants, etc. 3, conditions so as to prevent the repetition of the offense. These conditions are very much necessary invariably in all cases, whether the offender is released on probation under section 3 or section 4. And the third indication is that section 8 clarifies by conferring power on the court to vary the conditions of any bond, either by extending or diminishing the duration. Therefore, the court should know under what condition or under what circumstances the bond condition has to be varied. Without a report of the probation officer, how it is possible? It is not possible. And finally, section 9 contemplates a situation where the offender fails to observe the conditions. He may have to suffer the sentence or be liable for penalty as the case may be. Again, it shows that supervision is necessary. Therefore, wherever an offender is released on probation, supervision must be there, then only other provisions of the Act can be given effect to. The second drawback is that, as already I have stated, sensitization of entire judicial fraternity, including judges, advocates, public, court staff, etc. Even law universities are not giving proper education about this law. I want to know from the professor whether this provision of law is in your curriculum.
Sir, actually, this law is there in our curriculum, but it is not, as you mentioned, it is not given proper care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Therefore, there should be proper sensitization of judicial fraternity as a whole about the importance of this law. The real intention or purpose expected to be achieved by this legislation is now eroded by lack of sensitivity. Then always there is a tendency of setting the criminal cases during the trial stage by providing compensation to the aggrieved party. I remember when I was working in Payyanur as judicial first class magistrate, at that time, these traffic offences like section 279 and 337, 338, etc., High Court never permitted us to ask the driver or the accused to plead guilty and pay fine. We used to examine all the witnesses invariably. On a daily basis, we may examine 40, 50 witnesses. I remember. And all witnesses will turn hostile. They will come and say, എനിക്കറിയില്ല, ഡ്രൈവറെ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ, ഡ്രൈവറെ പരിചയമില്ല, കൂട്ടിൽ നിൽക്കുന്ന ആളാണോ, എനിക്കറിയില്ല. Because they settle the matter by paying the fine, paying a compensation. What I felt at that time, of course, section 320 CRPC there, if compoundable case is there, the party may compound it and the accused will be acquitted under 328. But non-compoundable cases are concerned, they cannot compound it. The result is that witnesses are turning hostile to the prosecution. From very beginning, what I feel is that even criminal courts are seen with disgrace. So many law students are here. You might have visited various courts, including magistrates courts. You might have found it that in the court what is happening. All the witnesses are turning hostile. The government pleader is smiling. The advocate for the accused is smiling. The judge is also, of course, smiling. Is it not appears to be mockery of justice? I felt so. Witness coming to the court and turning hostile because they cannot compound it. But they are paying money and turning hostile. Judge is writing a judgment, 2 or 3 pages, stating that the matter appears to be settled. Since it is not compoundable case, parties could not compound the offence. All the witnesses turned hostile. The remaining witnesses are left free by the GP, stating that no purpose in examining them. Therefore, the accused is acquitted. No offence is proved. This is what is happening. If there is no proper sensitization about this offence, the advocate should be in a position to give assurance to the client, stating that, you see, Probation of Offenders Act is there. Even if you plead guilty, no problem will happen. Such a provision can be made use of. But advocate cannot give such a guarantee because he has no guarantee that judge will use it. What I feel is that sensitization of all fraternity, legal fraternity, is very much necessary in this regard. Another thing is that the upper limit in section 4 and 6 about the categories of offences also creates some hardship. Offences not punishable with death or imprisonment for life. That creates some problems because you see section 307, 326, section 394, section 395, etc. in IPC, offences are punishable with the imprisonment for life. I worked in Kannur district. We know when political crimes are on the rise, police have a habit. Even for 324 offense, they are charging 307 or 308. Their intention is that this accused should not get bail. Understand? Once it is an offense under 307 or 308, it is a sessions offense and matter will be committed to the sessions court. The Probation of Offenders Act cannot be applied. Therefore, this upper limit should be taken away. The criteria is that the court should have a faith in the report of the probation officer, and after considering the antecedents of the accused, the circumstance he committed the crime, and the finding that he may not repeat such crime and he will be an useful member of the society in future. Therefore, this limit also creates problem. Then there is insistence on having a fixed place of abode for the offender. Therefore, if the probation officer gives a report to the court stating that end of the matter. We know in Kerala, we cannot remain in Kerala alone. For the purpose of job, you have to move. Of course, there is a provision in the rules that if change of address is there, it should be provided to the district probation officer. But if he wants to move out from Kerala, it is of no use. What I feel is that there should be a portal of national level so that he can be monitored properly, even by getting a report from the probation officer from the place where he is there for the purpose of job. This is also create some hardship. Already I have stated there should be some provision to get the report of the probation officer even before the sentence. In the run of disposing the cases and reducing pendency, there is a tendency of not calling for the report and ignoring the provisions of law by just observing that. What we are writing in the judgment, in the circumstance of the case, I find that it is not a fit case to apply the benevolent provisions of Probation of Offenders Act. Therefore, the accused is heard on the question of sentence and is convicted and sentenced so and so. ശരിയല്ലേ പ്രൊബേഷൻ ഓഫീസർ? ഇങ്ങനെയല്ലേ എഴുതുന്ന എല്ലാവരും? In the circumstance of the case, I don't find it is a fit case to apply the provisions of Probation of Offenders Act എന്ന് എഴുതും. Even without considering the report, because report call for ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. This is happening. There should be provision in the same act or any other law that such a report should be called in every case. ഈ സെക്ഷൻ 6 പറഞ്ഞതുകൊണ്ട് മാത്രമായില്ല. Then only there will be a tendency of going through the report and implementing the provisions. What I feel. Another aspect is that lack of sufficient number of probation officers and workload in the office of the probation officer. മുമ്പത്തെ പോലെ അല്ല. Now the probation officers are burdened with so many other tasks. Juvenile Justice Act. And what I feel is that even PWDB Act, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act.
Excuse me, sir. There is some difference in that. Actually, this Social Justice Department is bifurcated to Women and Child Department and SJD.
Okay.
In the year 2020. Nowadays, JJAC and this Domestic Violence Act, these two acts are being implemented through Women and Child Development Department.
Okay.
So, separate officers are there.
But I feel, Mr. Officer, you are overburdened even by under this Probation of Offenders Act. Am I right?
Yeah. Actually, we are doing this inquiry regarding Probation of Offenders Act.
Yes.
Kerala, this one, miscellaneous inquiries under Kerala Precedents, 2014.
Okay.
Plus, this ITP, this one, victim inquiry report under ITP Act. ITP Act.
Okay.
ITP Act. Plus, so many miscellaneous inquiries are there.
Okay.
So nowadays, to this one, to strengthen the probation system, we have started a project by name Nervali.
Okay.
And through that case, we are identifying these young offenders whose cases are to be this one considered under Probation of Offenders Act.
Okay.
Also, we are doing so many this one rehabilitation schemes. We are implementing so many rehabilitation schemes under our
Very good.
SPD this one probation system. So many self-employment schemes, self-employment schemes for dependents of convicts, self-employment schemes for probationers, employment schemes for victims. So many schemes are like that. These schemes are being implemented through probation office.
Okay.
So nowadays work is there, but in the case of Probation of Offenders Act, that much workload is not there. That is the reality.
I think the reason is that you are not getting sufficient intimation from the courts. That may be the reason.
Yes.
That may be the reason. Okay. I think these are all the drawbacks and the difficulties which generally I could point out. And it is a very good piece of legislation. It is intended for a particular purpose. That purpose is beneficial for all of us. And I think in future day, such symposiums may strengthen the movement. I thank for inviting me for having such a discourse, and I hope at least the participants here, they can propagate the idea of probation to your fellow friends, and on future day you may come as an advocates and you will think how this provision is important and how it can be made use of. Thank you for giving a platform, especially for Sri Lakshmi. She contacted me a number of occasions, and all other organizers. And I wish all success in your endeavor in sensitizing various sectors of judicial system. Thank you.